Hi, welcome to the United Panther Movement Book Club. We are reading The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, and we are in the last chapter on Series C, beginning at the bottom of page 207, discussing affective and mental changes and emotional disturbances after torture. Would anyone like to take a turn reading first?
I'll read first.
Awesome. Thank you, Comrade Shea.
This series, first of all, effective and mental changes and emotional disturbance after torture. I probably come up on this too, man. I was tortured when I was in prison. This series groups patients. This series group condition whose disorders appeared immediately after or during torture. We have classified them into subgroups because we realize that their characteristic symptoms of morbidity correspond to different methods of torture, irrespective of the superficial or profound effects on the personality. Group number one. After indiscriminate torture as a so-called precautionary measures. Here we refer to the brutal methods used to get the victim to speak rather than actual torture. The principle according to which above a certain limit the suffering becomes unbearable, here takes on a particular significance. The aim, therefore, is to reach this limit as quickly as possible. There's no meticulous attention to details. It is brute force using a variety of methods. Several policemen beat and stand around the prisoner in a circle, juggling with him like a punch ball, while one bumps his chest with a cigarette and another hits the sole of his feet with a stick. Sounds familiar to prison behaviors as far as the guards are concerned. Some of the methods of torture used in Algeria seem to us to be particularly horrifying as described to us by the victims. A. Water is forced to the mouth, accompanied by an anemia of soapy water injected at high blood pressure. A bottle is rammed into the anus. Two types of so-called forced mobility torture. The prisoner is forced to his knees, arms parallel to the ground, palms upward, keeping his torso and head straight. He is not allowed to move. A policeman sitting behind the prisoner forces him to remain motionless with blows from a billy club. The prisoner stands facing a wall, arms raised, his hands placed against the wall. Here again, at the slightest move or sign of weakening, he is dealt a series of blows. Sounds like when I was up in the wall in the yard after the Attica massacre. This type of torture is the cause of great many deaths. The high pressure of the anemia causes multiple lesions and many perforations to the mucous membrane and of the intestine. Gastric embolism and peritonitis commonly results.
That's really sad that they were using that as a means of torture.
That's the kind of torture they use in prisons. They use that all kind. We'll talk about it after this. We must now point out there are two categories of torture victims: those who know something, those who know nothing. Those who know something are seldom seen in the medical center. We may know for a fact that a particular patriot has been tortured in the French prisons, but we never encountered him as a patient. Those who know nothing, however, may often come to consult us. We do not, they never come to us as patients either. Listen, let me stop for a minute. Let me ask you something, Sen. When it says your internet is weak, what does it mean?
It means that your signal is low and could possibly break up.
Yeah,
But as
that's
for right now,
I keep seeing that on my screen. But anyway, let's just leave it alone.
your audio
Uh,
is still coming through okay. If it does start to break up, I'll give you a heads up.
yeah, okay. Where was I? We mean those Algerians because belonging to no organization who are arrested and taken to police barracks or integration centers to be questioned. Psychiatric symptoms encountered. Clinical depression, 4 cases. There are melancholic patients totally devoid of anxiety, depressed and most of the time bewritten, who avoid contact and then very suddenly become extremely violent for no apparent reason. Anorexia, anorexia, nervosa, nervosa. 5 cases. The patient posed serious problems since their anorexia nervosa is accompanied by a phobia of any physical contact. The nurse who approaches the patient touch him or take his hand, for example, is vigorously pushed away. Impossible to practice intravenous feeding or administer medication. We are speaking, of course, of those Algerians who know something and have not confessed under torture, for it is a fact that an Nigerian who confesses is killed immediately afterwards. Oh, God. The medical staff have to take turns attending the patient's night and day and explaining things to him. The idea that the patient needs a little bullying is understandably a little of little use here. Restlessness, 11 cases. Oh God. These are patients who cannot stay in one place. They insist on being alone and have difficulty accepting confinement with a doctor in his consulting room. Two feelings frequently emerge on this first batch of torture victims. First of all, that of injustice. Having been tortured day in and day out for nothing seems to have broken something in those men. One of these martyred victims had a particularly painful experience. After several days of unsuccessful torturing, the policemen came to realize they were dealing with a peace loving individual who had nothing to do with any of the FLN networks. In spite of this conviction, a police inspector reportedly said, Don't let him go, don't let him go like that. Work him over a bit more so that when he gets out, he'll keep quiet." Oh God. Secondly, an indifference to any moral argument. For these patients, there is no just cause. A torture cause is a weak cause. The first thing to do is to increase one's power and not pose the question of the merits of a cause. Power is the only thing that counts. Group number 2, after torture by electricity. In this batch, the Algerian patriots who have been mainly electricity was just one method of torture in the series. From September 1956 onward, certain interrogations were conducted exclusively with electricity. Wow. The precautionary torture in certain regions becomes precautionary repression. At Rivet, for example, although the place was totally calm, the colonists were determining not to be taken by surprise. The neighboring regions had begun to show signs of unrest and decided to eliminate purely and simply any member of the FLN. Over 40 Algerians were killed in a single day. Wow, that's something else.
That's fucking sad.
Psychiatric symptoms encountered. Local systematic somatic delusions. These cases, these cases, these patients feel pins and needles throughout the body and get the impression their hands are being torn off, their heads are busting, and they are swallowing their tongue. Apathy, lack of will, and loss of interest. 7 cases. These patients suffer from apathy, a lack of motivation and energy, and live from day to day. Phobia of electricity. Fear of touching a light switch. Fear of switching on the radio. Fear of using the telephone. Absolutely impossible for the doctors to even mention the possibility of electroshock treatment. Oh, God.
Yeah, that just sounds like more torture to somebody who's been tortured with electrical current in
Yeah.
their body.
After administration of the of the truth serum, this drug is used in a patient who apparently suffers from an unconscious mental block, such as no cross-examination can induce him to talk freely. Pentothal is the most common method with the aim of liberating the patient from an inner conflict he is unable to surmount. The doctor intervenes in order to liberate the patient from this foreign body. Nevertheless, there have been difficulties controlling the gradual disintegration of the psychological agencies or the emergence of new and quite inexplicable symptoms. Generally speaking, this method, therefore, has been more or less abandoned. In Nigeria, the military doctors and psychiatrists have discovered further detentions, have discovered further possibilities for experimenting with this method in the police detention center. Is pentothal can release repression in the case of neurosis than in the case of Algerian patriots. It is, in fact, not foreign at all. This conflict is nothing more than a result of the changing dynamics of his personality, but there's no question of foreign body. It will be better defined as being poorly assimilated. Must also be able to break the political barrier and get the prisoner to confess without recourse to electricity. For according to medical tradition, any suffering must be avoided. This is the medical equivalent of a psychological warfare. The scene goes as follows. First of all, the psychiatrist states,
Sorry.
I'm a doctor, not a policeman. I am a doctor, not a policeman. I'm here to help you. Thus, the prisoner trust is won after a few days. Then I'm going to give you a few shots to clear your head. For several days, all kinds of vitamins, heart stimulants, and other placebos are administered. On the 4th of the 5th day, the pentothal is injected intravenously. The interrogation begins. God, man. Psychiatric symptoms encountered. Verbal stereotypy. Some patient continually, stereotyping. The patient continually repeats phrases such as, I didn't tell them anything. You have to believe me. I didn't talk. This stereotyping is accompanied by a permanent anxiety. Very often, in fact, the patient is unaware of whether he has given any information away. Guilt towards the cause he stands for and the comrades whose names and address he might have given here takes on dramatic proportions. No reassurances can restore peace of mind to those ruined consciousness. Conscientiousness. Blurred mental and sensory perception. The patient cannot ascertain the ascertain the patient
Ascertain.
cannot ascertain the existence of an object. Reasoning, reasoning is assimilated without making any distinction. There is a basic distinction between truth and false. Everything is both true and. We can also mention the case of psychiatrists running the presence franchise groups who were appointed to examine the prisoner started off boasting that they were great friends with the defense lawyer and claiming both of them, the lawyer and the psychiatrist, would get prisoner out. All the prisoners examined by this method were guillotined. These psychiatrists voiced in front of us of this neat method of overcoming resistance. I wonder, man, if he, in spite of the fact that he didn't participate in none of these things, but I wonder, as a psychiatrist that he was, I wonder if he was present to see this shit happen.
I kind of wonder too, and that right there that they were referencing is a horrible manipulation tactic to convince these people under torture that their defense lawyer and their psychiatrist would get them out, and instead they just want the information and they're going to send them to the guillotine to get their head lopped off afterwards and then brag about it. That's fucked. That's so manipulative.
Anyway, let me keep going.
Like
This fear stems from the acute impression that that he can be integrated again at any time. Inhibition. The patient is on his guard. He registers a question word by word and elaborates his answer word by word. Hence, the impression of virtual inhibition, together with psychological slowing down, interrupted sentences and repetitions, etc. It is obvious these patients stubbornly refuse any type of intravenous injection. Group number 4, after brainwashing. Oh God, there comes a goodie. There's been much talk recently about psychological warfare in Nigeria. We have no intention of conducting a critical study of these methods. We shall merely highlight here their psychiatric consequences. There are 2 categories of brainwashing centers in Nigeria. For intellectuals, the principle here is to induce the intellectual into role playing. It is clear to which psychotherapy school this refers. Play the game of collaborator. The intellectual is induced to collaborate by establishing a justification for his collaboration. He is therefore obliged to live a dual personality and play the part of a well-known patriot who has been taken out of circulation as a precautionary measure. The aim of the operation is to attack from the inside. Those in the United States, there's a trend towards social therapy. Supporters of the school believe that the flight of contemporary man lies in the fact that he no longer has a role to play and that he has nothing but a part in the social mechanism. Social therapy therefore allows men to play civil roles as part of a genuine recreational activity. Anyone can play any role and even change roles during the course of the day, symbolically substituting for everybody. Occupational therapists in the U.S. apparently achieve miracles in group social therapy among factory workers. The workers are allowed to identify with role models and employer-employee relations are considerably less strained. Elements that constitute the national consciousness. Not only must he collaborate, but he is given orders to discuss freely with opponents and holdouts in order to win them over. This is an efficient way of getting him to give these on patriots and using him therefore as an informer. If by chance he claims he didn't find any opponents, they are designated for him, or else he is asked to behave as if they were. Giving talks on the value of French accomplishments and merits of colonialization. In order to achieve his job effectively, the intellectual is counseled by a broad spectrum of political advisors, such as officers for native affairs, or better still, psychologists, therapists, and sociologists. Take the arguments for the Algerian Revolution and eliminate them one by one. Algeria is not a nation. Algeria is not a nation. It has never been a nation and never will be. There's no such thing as Algerian people. Algerian patriotism is devoid of meaning. The fellow guards are schemers, criminals, and have had wood poured over their eyes. The intellectual have to take turns giving a presentation on these topics, and each has to be convincing. Grades, the infamous awards, are allocated and totally at the end of the month. They are used to evaluate whether the intellectual will be lead an absolutely pathological communal life. To remain alone is an act of rebellion. The individual must always be in the presence of somebody. Silence is also prohibited. The individual will think out loud. Somebody else take over, please.
Okay. Testimony. This is the case of an academic who was interned and subjected to months of brainwashing. One day, the camp officials congratulated him on his progress and announced he would soon be set free. Familiar with the enemy's tactics, he was wary of taking the news too seriously. The stratagem, in fact, was to announce to the prisoners they were going to be freed, and a few days before the set date, organize a group session of self-criticism. At the end of the session, it was often decided to postpone release since the prisoner showed no signs of being definitely cured. The session, according to the psychologist present, highlighted a single-minded nationalist virus. This time, however, there was no subterfuge. The prisoner was well and truly freed. Once outside in town and with his family, the former prisoner congratulated himself on having played his role so well. He was overjoyed at the idea of taking part again in the national struggle and endeavored to get back in touch with the leaders. It was then that a terrible nagging idea crossed his mind. Perhaps nobody had been duped, neither his captors nor his co-inmates, nor even himself. Where was the game supposed to end? Once again, we had to reassure the patient and free him from the burden of guilt. Psychiatric symptoms encountered. A. Phobia of any collective discussion. As soon as 3 or 4 people got together, the inhibition reappeared, and mistrust and reticence reasserted themselves. B. The subject finds it impossible to explain and defend a given viewpoint. An antithetical thought process. Anything which is affirmed can be simultaneously denied with the same force. This is certainly the most painful legacy we have encountered in this war. The obsessive personality is the fruit of the, quote, psychological warfare used in the service of colonialism in Algeria. 2, for non-intellectuals. In centers like Bergaya, subjectivity is no longer taken as the starting point for modifying the individual's attitude. On the contrary, emphasis is on the body, which is broken in the hope that the national consciousness will disintegrate. The individual is knocked into shape. The individual's reward is being spared torture or being allowed to eat. A, you must confess you are not a member of the FLN. It has to be shouted collectively and repeated for hours. B, then you have to confess to being in the FLN and now admit it was wrong, down with the FLN. Then comes the next stage. The future of Algeria is French. It can only be French. Without France, Algeria would return to the Dark Ages. Finally, you are French. Long live France. The disorders encountered here are not serious. It is the bruised, suffering body which cries out for peace and calm. The next section is going into Series D. Would you guys like to pause for a minute to discuss Series C cases? Because there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah. You know that they in Attica, a few years before the Attica Rebellion, they were performing shock treatments on certain people, and I don't know, it almost got to a point where my name was mentioned, and I wasn't on the list as of yet, but they were considering using me as for shock treatment. It just happened that I sent word out immediately to lawyers, you know, in case something happens to me, for them to be informed in advance of what was happening. So on that, they never did it. But I know there were some brothers that it was performed shock, you know, and it was really, it was horrible, you know, it was horrible. Uh, and they do that in various hospitals, mental hospitals as well, the way I understand it. You know, they perform shock waves. You know, they just lay you on. I know the method is lay you on the bed and strap you down, and then they run all these shock waves right to your body. You know, and it makes you jump. You know, so it's horrible, man. You know, being in any detention facility, whether it's prison or any other way, it's horrible because they always have methods and ways of trying to control either the patient or the prisoner.
Yep. I agree. Like, even when they try to call it electroshock therapy, it's like, this isn't really fucking therapy. You're torturing people and you're basically just electrocuting their brain to make them be complacent so that they are completely chill because, you know, they're fucking non-functional after that point. It's actually avoiding doing real therapy by discussing their issues with them, you know. It's avoiding actually addressing the problems that brought them into the mental hospital in the first place by going, okay, well, if we just fucking electrocute them into a stupor, then we don't have to deal with their shit. They'll sit silently in a chair and rock for the rest of the day instead because their brain just got fucking fried. And I feel the same way about them just willy-nilly using, you know, injectable drugs to quote unquote calm. It's one thing if someone is actually in a mental state where they need something to calm them down. It's another thing if they just don't want to be bothered with providing proper care to their patients and go and pump them full of like Valium or something so that they're vegetables sitting in a chair all day again. You know, that's not therapy. That's avoiding therapy. That's avoiding giving them proper care. Comrade Joe, I see you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Uh, you know, like that didn't just happen in the prison systems. It did happen, and I'm glad that Comrade Chen and you, Zanda, brought that out, that it happened in the medical field also, and institutions where not only would they do shock, what they would call shock treatment, but they would do whole frontal lobotomies. I mean, they just used them as guinea pigs.
Yeah.
And then they also used the soldiers in the Tuskegee Airmen. Um, and I've seen a movie about that, and I read a little bit about it. But they were even y'all not just doing it to inmates, not just doing it to people in mental facilities, but also to military members. And then that's why there was like, whoa, that's kind of like heavy piss. They the government has targeted a lot of people for a lot of those things, even with just in the reservations where they would what is that called when they make a woman that's not fertile anymore?
Where they force sterilization of
Yeah, forced
removing your
sterilization of
uterus and ovaries. Yeah.
men and women and stuff like that. That was another damaging thing. I know it doesn't relate so much with what they did on the psyche and the mental psyche, but it's just something that's been prevalent and amongst a lot of people's that I think the government is just used as guinea pigs. And that's all I wanted to say.
Shay, I see you've got your hand up. I do have a comment real quick of actually what you're pointing out there. The forced sterilization is maybe a little indirectly, but it is linked to the psychological factors of psychological warfare on colonized people. That's something that we see in common with how colonizers treated indigenous people here, with how the Nazis treated Jews in Germany, the whole nine yards of that's something that not only are they removing your ability to procreate, but they're causing a huge psychological impact there too that's going to damage you for the rest of your life because your autonomy as an individual was thereby removed of you not having that choice anymore over your own procreation and ability to do so. And it is a very fucked and torturous factor that they used to mentally break people down of like, okay, we might not just completely kill all of you off right now, but we're going to kill all of you off in the long term by removing your ability to reproduce and have children. Shay, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to say that they also treat how they treat children. They treat children. They give them this medication. I forgot the name of the medication that they give because they claim that these kids are incorrigible, and they need to be controlled. When I was a kid, man, I was placed in a temporarily foster home because my mother had to go for some medical issues, and I uh, I cursed out I cursed out one of the nuns. It was a Catholic home. I think it's St. Joseph Catholic home, and I cursed out the nun. Will you believe that they put me in a dark cell? In a dark cell, they put me in when I was only like 7 years old. They put me in a dark cell, for 24 hours without no food whatsoever. And then they requested that I get on these medications. There was and either that or else I get a beating. So I had to take this medication. It was Therazine. They gave me Therazine and Compazine.
As a
Yeah,
child?
yeah. As a child,
Holy
they gave me
fuck.
Therazine and Compazine, and I used to walk around, man, just totally out of this world for a while. You know, I mean, I've been tortured. When I read that shit, I said, man, shit, that sounds like me. But they gave me Therazine when I was a kid. And so I ran away from that. I ran away. I wound up going back home anyway. I ran away.
Holy shit. Talk
I had
about
to
school to prison
run away
pipeline shit right
because if I
there.
didn't run away, man, they would have killed me.
Right. Like they were literally conditioning you to being tortured and drugged as a child. And you know, that right there is probably one of the most heinous facets I've ever heard of, basically the school to prison pipeline of okay, we're going to get you used to being locked in solitary confinement, denied food and water, and drugged up where you're out of your fucking mind at 7 years old. That way you'll you know, potentially be more agreeable to it happening to you once we put you in the prison system. That's fucked. Like, Thorazine is one of those drugs typically reserved for if somebody is having a full-on psychotic break where they are in immediate danger to themselves and others around them, losing their shit. You don't give that shit to a 7-year-old child because they need to calm down. That's fucking inappropriate.
And this was a Catholic home. See, that's the whole thing. This was a Catholic. It was totally Catholic. I had to get up early in the morning, you know, at 4:30 in the morning. I had to make my bed, and then I had to go to church and pray, even though I didn't pray. I was an atheist all my life. I was an atheist when I was a kid. But I used to go to church with other kids, and they pray. And then at 7 o'clock, you know, we had to say some more prayers, you know, and sometimes now, as I reflect back at everything in my life, I say, damn, man, these people ever thought, man, that I probably didn't believe in God. You know, maybe they didn't even question me, you know, if I believed in God. They just totally imposed itself. They forced that upon me, man. I had to pray, and I didn't pray. I may believe I prayed, but I didn't. And then at 8 o'clock at night, you know, we had to pray before we went to bed. You know, it was crazy. It was a horrible place, man. It was torture. You know, because I didn't tolerate their bullshit. Every time I was, and that was the only first time that I was in isolation. I was in isolation a few times because I totally refused to be abused. You know, and as a result, man, I went to hell.
Sounds like it. I mean, that's one of those things that is in common with a lot of these Catholic schools, where a lot of indigenous and Chicano kids were, you know, basically kidnapped and fucking sent to, and getting tortured, getting indoctrinated, getting whitewashed out of their own identity. And it all goes into that psychological warfare that colonizers do on colonized children. It's all too frequently, sadly, a thing that is happening in colonized areas. Joe, I see you.
A lot of stuff is happening here in the United States. You know, we talk about Algeria, man, and that's okay because we're reading this book. But that happens right here in the United States. All the United States.
Yeah, it's a direct parallel. Hell, even the part at the end of that section that's still up on screen right now reminds me directly of the lies of American exceptionalism and the way it tries to whitewash everybody of, you're not this culture or ethnicity, etc. You're American. And, you know, it's still, again, psychological warfare of conditioning people to actually think that bullshit's true. And it's like, why would you fucking have some kind of false sense of you know, patriotism towards the colonizers who are torturing you out of your own existence? Go ahead, Comrade Joe.
Yeah, and it's still happening today within the child CPS programs, where they go in there and then they take children away from their homes and they send them to facilities. And when we're talking about facilities, one of the things the facilities use is, whether it's in prison, as a lockdown, wherever else, it's deprivation. And of course, we're all accustomed to our sensory awareness, being free children of the world. But when it's deprived, or when it's put into not available for us, then of course we're going to strike out. And then I heard Brother Chad mentioned, because I worked in mental facilities for a long time. So poor patients, they would give them Thorazine, and I would call it the Thorazine shuffle, because after they take a couple of pills of Thorazine, their feet barely move. They're just like shuffling across the floor just to get by. And then it was like the Malorel and all these things. And a lot of the doctors would just switch up the medications on patients, and it would totally jack them up. And they might have been having any kind of acts of what they would socially call acts of reasons to give such medications justifiable. They wouldn't even have that if they wouldn't be changing their medications. And then you go back to the kids. They would use that one drug on kids, that they say, well, this kid's not acting right. Maloril. No, I think it, no, let me see. I think it was Maloril. They would give these to the kids, and they would be sitting there like freaking zombies, just because they talked too much, or they had a little twitch to them. They were just kids. I mean, everybody got a little twitch to them or whatever. But they would get them all doped up, and then get them strung out on drugs. And then once they turn 18 and other benefits don't work anymore, now they go to the streets to find street drugs to continue on what they've already been trained to do. And then that's a whole system's way of just keeping people down, bringing people down. And I think that's kind of the points I wanted to make.
Yeah.
Hopefully I said the right one for the kids.
Yeah.
I forgot the exact name to it.
Adderall.
I'm not sure. Adderall?
Adderall.
Yeah.
Adderall's one
Yeah.
of the biggest ones given to ADHD kids, and it's basically lab-made meth. And so, like you were saying, when the kids age out and they're no longer like covered by their parents' insurance or whatever Medicaid access they might have had while they were still underage, when that gets cut, then they no longer have prescription coverage to continue taking this lab-made meth called Adderall, and they turn to smoking fucking meth that they can get from a dealer on the corner, and oftentimes end up then just being a statistic. And I definitely think that's fucking intentional and planned. Go ahead, Sean.
I was gonna say Ritalin had the same effect on me. It's basically
That's the one I was going to say. Readily. Thank you. Sorry.
yeah.
Ritalin. That was the medication I took too. Ritalin.
Yeah.
Concerta and Strattera are very similar drugs used for the same purposes there too for ADHD. The same thing. It all comes down to stimulants, because for some reason in kids, if you give them stimulants, it supposedly has a calming factor. As somebody with ADHD, I don't see how that would have ever fucking helped me. I didn't realize it till many years later, but I'm aware now that like when I started smoking weed at 11 years old, I was self-medicating for my ADHD because it helped to slow down the hyperactive part where I could actually focus. And I'm thankful for that, because I'd much rather fucking smoke weed than be like, hey, let's take some meth. Fuck. Sean, I'm not sure if your hand is back up or if it's just still up. I don't know if you have any further thoughts.
I did not specifically have any thoughts on this other than, I agree with those who have spoken up and, also experienced kind of similar either through their jobs or growing up, in whatever various homes. It's just awful to hear that, my experience was not exactly unique, but at the same time, just realizing how widespread that exact playbook got played against so many people.
Globally. Yep. There's
Yeah.
commonalities that we will see between how colonizers treat the colonized in many facets on many levels, all the way down to the way that these, forced assimilation Catholic schools treat children, all the way to the way that people are treated in the medical industry, the whole fucking 9 yards. And it all comes back to that one factor of being colonized by people who want to oppress you to the point of subjugation on every fucking level. Comrade Joe, I see you've got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, one of the things that we need to draw attention to that is still continuing to happen today. And we cannot lose focus on that, because we still have kids affected by the system. There's different ways that the system works against us. And they're still pushing out these pills for kids, these little quiet down pills, your kids too. And then right away they want to deem it like ADHD, or they didn't even have a term for it. They're like, well, let's just try this pill this week. Oh, well, that pill is making that kid act up more. Let's try this pill. Before you know it, the kid's all jacked up. Sometimes it's not even just chemical imbalances. Maybe it's just counseling. Maybe it's just a kid needed someone to talk to. Didn't even need a pill. Didn't even need no get right pill or anything like that. But the way the system and the economy has it set up, they have it where it's a money-making, multi-billion-dollar money-making scheme to keep letting people think they're sick without having no cure other than this simple magic pill that doesn't even work for shit anyway, because now you have all kinds of other repercussions for taking that pill. You got liver damage, you got this. I mean, like you see the commercials, they'll have 5 different things. Well, this could happen, that could happen. You could die, you could do this. Well, shit, did I even need that pill to begin with? Like, damn, let me just, like you said, Sister Zen, let me just take a little hit of weed and then I'm okay. I don't need no magic pill. And I don't need to have that high price $500 pill, whatever they rape the insurance companies for. And like we had mentioned, once they turn 18 and no longer under their parents' Kaiser or a plan, now they are left out in the dirt because it's not even a money-making scheme for them no more, because they can't charge it to some kind of insurance company. Scandalous all the way around. That's all.
Yep. 2 points that I have commentary on. For one, the here, just take this pill. And this is something that we have talked about before, but it's pertinent here too, that most of the time they're not doing the blood work to even find out if the patient actually has a chemical imbalance in their neurotransmitters first, to see if they even need that pill to supplement what the brain is able to produce. So when that's just a blanket treatment across the board of here, take this fucking pill, they're giving it to countless people who don't actually need it, who it's not going to help because they're not lacking in that neurotransmitter. It only is going to fucking help if you actually have that chemical imbalance. If you don't have that chemical imbalance and you just need therapy to be able to work through your issues and whatnot, then, it's not going to do fuck all for you except give you a bunch of side effects and leave you frustrated. And yeah, on the weed tip, when it comes to things like, okay, I have ADHD, I have anxiety, I have complex PTSD. You know what? Smoking weed fucking helps with all of them. If my anxiety is through the roof, guess what? The fuck it all that's in weed fucking chills that out. If I am triggered into dissociation by PTSD, that helps recenter me to just take a break away from every fucking thing and smoke some weed, calm down, center my fucking thoughts, come back to being within myself. Things like that. And the side effects are happy, hungry, and sleepy. Motherfucker, what's going to go wrong? I'm going to wake up and fucking eat everything in my fridge. I think I'll be fine. That's all I had to say about those 2 things of like,
yeah,
that laundry list of side effects. of like, hey, you're gonna shit your brains out, fucking have anal seepage, you might possibly die, you're gonna have red rashes all over your skin, but hey, this pill will make you happy. It's like, why would I want all that other shit? You know?
Well, I wanted to bring out too is we got to take into consideration a lot of the doctors own stocks and manufacturers or medication manufacturers, pharmaceutical manufacturing companies such as Pfizer and so on and so forth.
Yep.
So of course they're going to promote that little magic pill because they're going to get a little take in the end. So when so now they brought that little corporate greed into a grander picture where now they are profiting on promoting specific names, titles, brands of medications, and pharmaceutical companies that create those pills. And we always got to remember, as indigenous peoples, as revolutionary soldiers and sisters, and a lot of those medications can be done homeopathically, or just changing your diet, or adding a little, whatever the case may be. But that's all. I don't know. It's just a scam, another scam business. And let me not get all upset. Go ahead, comrades.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It's not healthcare, it's health business. And just to add a little thought to what you said, it's not just the ones who own stocks in those pharmaceutical companies. Even if they don't own stocks, they're farm reps that are coming out to the doctor's offices and promoting, here, we have this new drug, we have that new drug, blah, 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 blah. Those motherfuckers write cut checks, you basically as a doctor are taking a cut from the profits from the sale of that drug. And so it's like, here, have a fucking kickback. We're going to bribe you to, put all of your patients on this medication now, whether they fucking need it or not. And it's sad and pathetic that that's what it's come down to, of doctors caring more about where they can profiteer, either from being a shareholder or from getting those kickbacks of those checks cut to them, rather than being concerned about what will actually help their patients heal. Comrade Shay, I saw you throw your hand up there. Go ahead.
Yeah. You start with one medication. One medication. That's all it takes before you get two medications. And then you get three medications. And then you get four medications. Pharmaceutical is a big money, man. The reason why they haven't been able to cure cancer, they could cure it. They could cure cancer. But the reason why, because the more patients they have, the more money they make.
Yeah.
And that's the bottom line, man. Pharmaceuticals is big industry, big money. They make so much money, it's ridiculous. But I wanted to say something, man, that Brother Joe touched on before, and it reflected on me. When I was a kid, I ran away from home many times. And the reason why I ran away from home, because there was domestic violence involved. My stepfather used to beat up on my mother, and my mother would be fighting. They both be fighting all the time, especially when they drink. When they get drunk, they will fight. And so I used to run away from home. I couldn't tolerate that. And guess what? The courts decided that I had problems. They said that I was a troubled child, that I had many emotional problems, and that I need to be put away. And yeah, they put me in a detention center. And that's putting me in the detention center instead like Brother Joe said, instead of a social worker talking to me and asking me, what's your problem? Could I help you? No. They automatically make diagnosis, man, and say, well, he needs to go here, he needs to go there. And believe it or not, the first place I went, I was rebellious. And I was like 7 years old, I was rebellious. And you know what? It's gonna blow your mind when I tell you. They put me in a straitjacket.
What the fuck?
I was 7 years old in a straitjacket. Can you imagine? And
Bro.
only because I refused to take their medication. At first, I refused. Later on, I had to go along with the program, but at first, I refused.
That's
And they
so
put me
fucked.
back, and I was walking around, man, with my hand like that. I couldn't move my hands or nothing.
That's
It's
what I
abuse.
was saying, comrade, that there's different tactics that they use. But ultimately, all their tactics are to break us mentally, physically, and spiritually. And they
Yeah.
deprive us of our natural sensations in life, the beauty of life. They take all the beauty of life away, break you so down to thinking that this little magic pill is going to make everything all nice and sunny and bright, and just to profit off of the people's. It's been a scam. It continues to be a scam, and we definitely have to keep aware of that.
Yeah.
Sorry you had to go through
Definitely.
that, comrade Che Dispensa.
Yeah, that's so inherently fucked that instead of them talking to you like a human being and asking you what the problems were that you were running away from and listening like, hey, my parents are being violent and I'm being abused, and them actually giving you help, that they were like, oh, you must be incorrigible, let's put you in a home. And that right there speaks to another facet of the scam too, because the more kids they get in these fucking group homes and
The
church
more
schools
money
and
they
all
make.
that other bullshit, the more funding that those fucking
Exactly.
places get.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
It's big money,
they
man. It's big
automatically
money.
do not have an interest in actually handling the real
They
problems that
don't.
you have.
They don't.
And today's time, it's foster care. That's
Yep. Yep. Because that right there is a
Yeah.
huge place to
Foster
funnel
care.
funds into from the fucking federal government and the state, that they're not interested in actually helping those kids. They are interested in keeping that money fucking flowing. And the only way to justify keeping the funds flowing is to be like, see, we constantly have more kids that we have to put in this system. And it's all bullshit.
Did you hear that a few years ago there was a report that was made pertaining to senior citizens homes, where they were being abused? You read
Mhm.
you heard about I'm quite sure you heard about it. Senior citizens, so you could imagine, it goes from kids all the way up to the senior citizens, man. They abuse these senior citizens. These poor old folks, man, they put them in a home, and they strip them of their money, really big money. They strip them. If they got Medicaid, it's gone. If they got Medicare, you can't get it. Medicaid, no, Medicaid or Medicare, Medicare, Medicaid. I don't know, one of them two. But they just totally strip you of all everything, man. And they get abused, man. They found they put a video to check out whether it was true. Now they seen it, that old folks were being abused in these homes. So you can imagine, here we are talking about kids, and which is only another reflection of how they treat people, old folks.
I witnessed it firsthand, and that's why I don't work in the nursing field anymore, because the lack of compassion for the patients, where they just become just another business thing. And when you touch, and I worked with not just mental facilities, but I worked in elderly facilities and Alzheimer daycare patients, and what happens is that there's just a check. So like even the elderlies, oh, they might have worked 50 years in their life, and they got a well, whatever whether it's just Medicaid or whatever, but a lot of them have pensions, and a lot of them have what do you call it, retirement funds, that
Yeah.
the facility will take 90 or 95% of them, their funds, so they can be housed there, and they'll give them a $30 allotment for the month. Like, here, go buy yourself some toothpaste. Like, get the hell out of here with that shit. And they keep all the money just to house them. Like, it's scandalous. I don't know. That's all.
Big rat. A big
It's
rat.
fucking corrupt. I've seen that shit too. For a long time, I worked in nursing homes, and eventually transferred from there to home health care because of all the problems like that that I saw happening in the nursing homes of, you know, whether it be scam artist shit like that or the direct physical abuse of patients that was happening in the nursing homes. And it's pretty fucked because there was quite a few people who got reported by the patients who, when we called the shit out in our meetings, the corporate fucking overlords that actually, you know, are in control of running these nursing homes weren't willing to fire those people, even with multiple complaints from patients going, hey, this person beat the shit out of me for peeing my depends. Things like that that happened left and right. And it very much felt like our hands were tied. If there's nothing we can do unless we actually catch them in the fucking act. Good luck when everybody's so short-staffed and slammed with more patients than what is legally allowed per nursing assistant. And so you don't even have the opportunity to go into the other parts of the building and check and see if your coworker who's been fucking abusing patients is doing it some more. If you don't catch them in the fucking act of it, there ain't fuck all the corporation will do about it.
Yeah, that's true.
You're right about that, because a lot of times I would get 12 to 14 patients on in home living patients that I would have to care for. And Lord forbid somebody calls off of work. So now you got 24, 28 patients that you have to take care of. It's very, very, very hard to take care of that many patients. I mean, like, I'm a father of 7 daughters. It was hard with 7 daughters. Now imagine 14 or 28. Oh man, that's like, you cannot give them the adequate care and attention that they need when you have to juggle between Susie and Johnny and anybody else that has some extra bowel movement or whatever the case may be, and I don't know, it's just very hard. And I don't think I'll work for those facilities anymore, but I still have a passionate heart to care for the elderly and care for the kids, because that's our natural born right to do that. To as people of the earth, we have to take care of one another, because if we do not, I don't see anybody jumping up, raising their hands like, I'll take care of grandma. They got these stupid commercials, a place, a home for mom, or a place for mom. Like, I would, what idiot would put their parents in an old folks home? Or what idiot would let the system take their children away from them? But the way the society has it, it's like marketed to like, oh, well, if you don't want to deal with this, we have somebody that'll deal with it for you. And then they get, yeah, like you said, abused, mistreated, neglected in these facilities. And it's like preposterous. Like, I can't even imagine, like, I would never do that to my folks. I would never do that.
Yeah.
I didn't take 12 years out of my life to care for my grandparents so they wouldn't even go to places like that. And that was hard, but I did it, and I'm proud of it. And I think a lot of us should take that in consideration when it comes to time to take care of mom, when it comes time to take care of dad, or when it, and I even have a daughter that has Down syndrome. That's what even got me started even thinking about going into the medical field, of all the time that I spent in the hospitals with her for a heart defect. So I don't know, man. The way the system is, and it's all money making. It's a money making scheme. I brought it up earlier, and I'll bring it up again. Now that you brought it up, Sister Zen, the whole school to prison pipeline, and that's one of the things that were being talked about today. But even in the medical field and stuff like that, where they just subjugate a lot of us lower income peoples of color, or peoples that are not knowledgeable to understand, because they'll come, a doctor will come to talk to you and all this what you would call jargon or whatever, just gibberish, because you don't understand a damn thing they're talking about, almost like they're talking in pig Latin, using all these fancy words. Like, damn, I don't understand all those fancy phrases and words. Like, just come at me straight, doctor. Like, what is it? And I make this joke nowadays. I said, the doctor gave this patient 6 months to live. He couldn't pay his bill, so the doctor went ahead and gave him another 6 months to live. Like, get the hell out of here with that. Like, come on now, get a grip, system. That's all.
Right. And, you know, I'd like to point out another facet here, that a lot of this inherently does also come back to capitalism, not just in them wanting to profiteer off of, you know, nursing homes, etc., but in the facet of, like, as adult children of elderly people, most of us don't have the capacity, the literal ability to be able to provide that care for our elderly family members, because we're stuck having to work countless fucking hours in order to have the multiple incomes coming into one household just to even keep the fucking roof over your head, the lights on, and some food in your belly, where you don't have that option unless you have at least one, if not two people in the home making enough income to provide for the entire household, and there still be another adult available to stay home and do the care. And so it's also, you know, framed in that manner of like, oh, you don't have time to take care of grandma, just send her to this home. And so when I see people even considering that kind of shit, I tell them, no, don't fucking do that. If you yourself cannot directly provide that care because you are in a position of having no other choice but to work 40, 50, 60 hours a fucking week at your job, then hire a home healthcare worker that, you know, most of the time the patient's insurance will still even cover that, or be able to pay for it with their what's it called, that retirement fund, their pension, things like that, something along those lines that actually keeps them in their own home. Because I can say firsthand, after having worked in both nursing homes and working in home health care, that patients who are allowed to remain in their own home do far better physically and mentally, the whole fucking 9 yards. They will have a greater quality of life and more longevity if they are allowed to stay in their own home. I've seen so many people immediately sink into depression when their families dumped them off at the fucking nursing homes. And they're like, what the fuck is this? I don't know where I'm at. I don't fucking know anybody here. How am I supposed to trust you? Where the fuck did my family go? Why did they dump me off here? And we've literally had situations where, like, the patients packed their fucking suitcases, went walking out the front door when nobody was looking, and walking down the fucking road, and we had to go hunt them down and bring them back so that they didn't get hit by a fucking car or something, because they did not fucking want to be there. So if you're in that position, do everything in your power to try to keep people in their own homes where they're not going to mentally spiral downwards like that and feel that stress, because that's going to take away from their fucking quality of life and their physical health too. Get them a home health aide if you cannot meet those needs directly yourself. Have somebody come to your home to care for them, because these nursing homes are fucked. Shay, I saw you had your hand up. Go ahead, hon.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, you know, I'm 76 years old. You know, I'm getting close to 80. You know, my wife is telling me that the reason why I'm here in the Republic is because I'm trying to, you know, I'm waiting for her to come over here and try to get her daughter to go back to the States with me, you know, so that she could take care of me. Because she said that she doesn't have trust on too many people. So she prefers that her daughter take care of me back in the States. and that's why I'm here, because she works while when I was there, she was constantly working, and she didn't want me to stay by myself in the house, so she sent me here to be with the family as long for a while. And then when she comes, she's gonna try to get her daughter to take her back to the States and take me back so that she could take care of me. Because she said she would never put me in a home. You know, uh, I don't want to disclose my personal, but let me say that I got slight touches of what was that when you forget shit? What you call that?
Dementia.
Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's. I'm beginning to get touches of that, and so my wife said, "No, you don't even worry about it. You will never be in no home. If I had to give my job up, I'll give it up. But you will never be in no home. But for now, I want you to be in the Dominican Republic because you over there, you have fun with your granddaughters and grandchildren, and my other daughters, and you be with the family. As long as you with the family, I feel that's what she said. I feel okay, and I feel comfortable with that. So that's why I'm here. Hopefully I'll be getting back. I don't know when she comes and tries to do some maneuvers with the government here and try to take her daughter back to the States, you know. And if she takes her daughter back to the States, then I'm going back with her because she's the one who's going to take care of me.
That's what's up. Your wife's wise to address it in that manner because you are much safer with your own family members, and it will do wonders for
Yeah.
keeping and maintaining your health mentally and physically in the long run. Happiness is a huge factor in mental health. Ain't nobody fucking happy in some nursing home.
Hell no.
Yeah, if I could share
People
something
don't. If
on
I was
that.
alone, I wouldn't even go to it either. Sorry.
No, comrade, go ahead.
Sorry, Brother Joe.
Oh no, I was gonna say one of the conditions one of my grandparents had, my grandfather had Alzheimer's, and that's a very hard person or hard individual or disease to deal with, not only for the one that's suffering through that, but for the caregiver. Because towards the end, comrade, my grandpa came at me with a knife a few times, thinking I was some stranger in the house. And then he started getting delusional, thinking that somebody's in the bed with my grandma. Started hitting my grandma. They're talking, they're up in their 80s, pushing 90s. So I had to be caregiver, referee, cook, nurse, appointment setter, grocery shopper, house cleaner. I mean, there's a lot that goes with it. So it's not for everyone. And I'll give it that, because not everybody can take working 9 to 5s or 40, 50 hours a week can do that. But this is what I can say. And I didn't get much support from the families. But if the families can get together and like, hey, you sit in, let me and my family go out to dinner. Let me and my family go out to for the weekend, or let Joe, the main caregiver, have 1 or 2 weeks break and have somebody else sit in. But like you were saying, your wife has a good point. Who can you trust to do that? Especially when it's talking about like finances and stuff like that, or you give them your credit card to go to the store to get groceries and then go buy themselves a color TV or whatever the case may be. Like it's hard to even trust people within the family because not everybody does it from the heart. They want some kind of monetary value for stepping in, and that's wrong. But well, whatever we
Yeah.
do, we have to do from the heart. And I'm glad you with your families because you know what? You get to eat some sopa de pichon or whatever,
That's
some
what I
stuff
got
that,
over here. That's what I was eating.
yeah, yeah. So you don't get that just with anyone, you know what I mean? Not even a
Yeah,
caregiver knows how to make sopa de pichon. But like
man, that's
you got it, you know what I mean? It's good that you're with your families. And you
yeah.
hang in there, brother. Whenever you need to talk, aquí estoy.
Thank you.
You
Oh
bring
boy.
up a huge important point there of like even being able to trust people in your home with caring for your elderly family members, of like even if you are hiring a home health aide because one of the family members isn't able to do that stuff, you're still going to have to carry some of that responsibility unless you have a home health aide that you absolutely know you can trust with, here's the grocery money if you can run to the store for grandma or whatnot, or if grandma or grandpa is still mentally cognizant enough to be able to go with the home health care aide to the store to pick out the foods that they want or something like that. you know
Yeah,
so it does come down to a huge thing when it comes to trust of like, not just is this person trustworthy with the funds that are supposed to be there for providing, food or hygiene products or et cetera that, the patient might need, but, can you trust them to not be abusive and, be harming your family members if nobody's there to see.
yeah, yeah,
And sadly, coming back to the torture subject of the day, as I point out, that has been a huge fucking problem. More so in nursing homes. I have noticed that, you know, there was exponentially less complaints about that type of thing working in home health care than there was in the nursing homes. But it's still something you got to be aware of and cautious about and, make sure that there's not anything like that going on.
yeah. That's why when I go on the Attica thing, when I go, I'm gonna be talking very loud, to let people know that prisoners are being tortured on a daily basis every day. And if we out here don't do nothing, then we're responsible for whatever they do. You know,
Yeah.
and we cannot allow another Attica to happen because this time it may be worse.
Yeah.
It may be worse. So that I got something already packed up, man. I'm gonna throw at the people, man. That's gonna be there. I'm gonna let them know, man. Listen, get involved, do something, but stop stop talking about, man. Oh, they're criminals. They're not criminals. They're victims. We need to start looking at them as victims and not criminals. There's no such thing as criminals as they used to be. Now what we got in prisons are victims. You
Mhm.
know, so
In most
that's
cases, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, when when it really comes down to it of actual crime, we are talking about, okay, what harm was caused and to who. So there's very few things that actually qualify as criminal, and we're talking like absolute fucking cold-blooded murder, as in you killed somebody and it was not in self-defense, but out of malice. Or if you are going around raping people, things like that, if like there's an actual harm caused. Most people who are in prison right now, whatever it was they did was not actual criminal activity because there was no harm caused to anybody else. Like people who are in there for drug possession, who the fuck are you harming by you doing drugs? Yourself? Maybe if you're fucking abusing it, you might harm your own health, but there's no victim. So how is there a fucking crime because you were in possession of a drug? There isn't one. It's manufactured criminality just to feed the prison population of like, let's keep more people flowing in there to keep these fucking corporate cunts who own the prisons anymore happy about the percentage of beds that they have filled. Because when it comes to for-profit, private, corporate-owned prisons, they literally force the states, the counties, the whole 9 yards into contracts with them, where in most cases it's in the high 90th percentile that they require those beds be filled to 98%, 99%, whatever. And if there's empty beds, then they fine the state or they fine the county that they're in of like, well, you have to pay us now because you didn't provide us with another body to fill this bed for your state funding to be coming to us to pay for providing for that person. You left an empty bed, so we're going to fine you now. And it's all fucked. So that incentivizes the fucking pigs on the street to make up criminality to fucking arrest people and imprison them for. That right there is an impetus for a lack of ethics across the fucking board when it comes to the policing institutions, the fucking judges, the lawyers, the whole fucking 9 yards, where
Yeah.
got these legislators making more and more bills to criminalize this, criminalize that, criminalize all kinds of fucking shit where there's no harm being done. So there's no victim. There is no real fucking crime. It's just well, we're going to say that as a society, we don't want you to be able to do that with your own fucking meat suit. So that way we can call you a criminal and throw you in prison and fucking profiteer off of you in that manner with state funding, federal funding, and oh, hey, some free slave labor too, because thanks to the 13th Amendment, that's where slavery got allocated. So now these corporate prisons are exploiting the prisoners' labor and sending them out to do free fucking work for their sister corporations of like, oh, you're working in production. You know where we still have manufacturing in this country? Is forcing prisoners to do manufacturing for like pennies a fucking hour so that those fucking corporations don't have to pay labor what it's worth of $30 to $40 an hour for those high skilled jobs. It's fucked.
Yeah. And you know something, a lot of people, quote unquote, that were considered criminals at one time are no longer, you know, today, many of them are revolutionaries. You know, many of them are revolutionaries. I would be considered a criminal because I was supposed to have taken someone's life, you know, back then, you know, but it was a gang fight. And if I would have took his life, he would have took mine because I tussled with him. I took the knife away from him and I stabbed him. Because if I didn't stab him, he was to stab me. You know, so it was a question of who was going to live. And, you know, survival, you know, self-defense. You know, but the court looked at it as it wasn't self-defense because going back to my childhood, you know, I have a long record of being a bad boy. So they gave me 15 years.
They shouldn't have even considered.
And I was only 14.
You were just a child. They shouldn't have even been taking into context of like, oh, this child has been, you know, basically imprisoned since 7 years old for shit that was beyond his fucking control. But the fact that you literally had to disarm an assailant who was trying to kill you and just happened to kill him with his own weapon to protect your own life. That is fucking self-defense. You were a child. You should not have been treated as an adult. You should have not been judged for having already been in the system when the system fucking swallowed you into it to avoid helping you with the abusive fucking conditions you were dealing with at home. It's all fucked. Jesus.
I wish, Sam, don't get me wrong. Don't misconstrue me, but I wish you was my judge.
Rob Rich has his hand up.
Yeah, Rob, do tell us your thoughts, because I know you got some experience in this area too.
If you was my judge, I would have never went to jail.
Fuck no, you wouldn't. You would have gotten a therapist and some counseling and safe housing.
Yeah. There's a lot. I've been like catching like not everything that you guys been talking about because I've been, you know, doing a bunch of stuff right at the house right now. But I'll chime in on a few things that I caught and I just want to highlight. So I basically went to jail for the same exact thing you did. Like, I did 10 years, similar circumstances. It was a gang situation. The guy thought I thought he was a part of a different gang that had something to do with something that happened the night before. And because he kept like agitating the situation in the neighborhood I was at, and come to find out, he thought I was over there with some girl that something to do with some female that was out there, something that he was dating, and then she said she was gonna get somebody from a different gang. Next thing I know, this dude's coming at me with a knife, and I defended myself. I actually had a pistol on me, and I had pulled the gun out, and I told him like basically drop. I was 17 years old. I told him to drop it, like, man, like back up. And he thought, come to find out, he thought it was a BB gun because he kept coming after me with the knife trying to stab me. So I found out the hard way it wasn't a BB gun. And it's so I mean, there's more details in this. I could go on what happened at trial and stuff like that. Like, cause he got, but I look back on these things, right? And I was 45 minutes away from what happened with Kyle Rittenhouse. And I think about why he was treated so different than I was. And it, you know, and I understand the race card situation at hand, but it was a different outcome for me. And I think it was based off of the political aspect of it, because if the conservatives didn't highlight what happened with him, you know, he probably would have got sent to prison too. And wow. I mean, it's weird because he was 17 years old, I was 17 years old, and it was similar circumstances, you know. But irregardless, like the shit at, like, from kids, like I just turned 17. I had literally, but like they look at it like my background. I was in and out of juvenile detention and shit like that. That like basically, like, yeah, he did it without self-defense doesn't matter for this kid. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyways, yeah. So like some of the stuff that you were talking about, like from being in prison and being tortured, I did 5 months in SEG, like at 17 years old. Cause like they threw me in there with adults, and I'm one of those people that I refuse to get picked on. I refuse to be anything like that. So I was always fighting. So like getting stuck in the hole when you're just staring at bricks for like that's all you do. Like you wake up and you don't know what time it is because you don't get no sunlight. Like you're just literally in there, like you just bounce around with your thoughts.
Yeah, that's true.
And that and the torture aspect of, you think about all the people that's in Colorado right now, right? That's been in Pontiac Seg, that's been years in segregation without literally, and just think about how torturous that is, and they don't care. I think it's even against like international laws, and they still don't care. But something that was talked about earlier too, like with how like the medication is intertwined with this too. Like I remember, it's like you knew if you were sleeping, you knew what time Medline was here because you would hear all the doors click, 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 everyone to come to the Medline to get their meds. Yep. And it was probably 80% of the entire wing that are medicated, like to a point where they're almost like zombies in there. And sometimes, I think some of it was coerced, some of it was forced, some of like there's a lot of different aspects of this. But just think about it. I remember a guy when I was first in there, he was locked up, he didn't know whenever he was coming home, that he just took sleeping pills all day and he slept his time away. Like that's all he did was just sleep. And just think what that does to the body, just to deal with, like, to cope with your you know, your material conditions. But that's like not even just a reflection of prison. When you're outside and you're in a situation, you don't see no end, right? You don't know if you're ever going to get out your situation. And, you know, what you turn to is to like medication. You know what I'm saying? Like our material conditions are torturous. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I know I caught bits and pieces of what you guys were talking about, but like when this subject in prison is like a heavy one.
It's very, I mean, prison is torturous. Could you imagine? And I'm going to give you an example of somebody who was in prison and wanted to go. They were torturing him so much that he took a mayonnaise jar, empty, and shoved it up his rectum.
I seen that same thing. I knew that same thing happened.
In order for him to be taken out, to be transported to a hospital so that he could get out of jail.
He could have died.
I don't know. He never came back. I don't know. He never came back. I never seen him again. But he shoved the whole jar of mayonnaise bottle up his rectum just to get out of jail.
Yeah, I seen that same thing happen where I was at, and this I'm telling you, like as a kid, and I seen people kill themselves where they shove something up there to claim sexual assault. So he could get moved or he could get out or out of a situation, and it just I mean. I heard stories about people when they go behind the wall and their first day, there's a dude I was in there with, he said his first day walking in, a body fell and hit the ground, like from the third or fourth tier in Menard Correctional Center. Dude just like ended his life. And they said he jumped off the top and dove down head first. Like there was no, like, it's just like, and just think about, and you hear about like stuff about, people screaming and crying and now you don't know what was going on to them and stuff, and how traumatizing that is. And then people that done this time in places that are like, I'm not talking about like the day camp prisons. I'm talking about the hardcore prisons where
that's that
you get out, and those are the people they throw right back on the streets. The people who they give like work release and halfway houses and like they like help them with stuff when they get out, are the people who have like only did like a year or 2, 6 months. But the guys who did 20, 30 years, they throw them right on the streets. And I always tell this story about when I was back on a parole violation on the buses from Stateville, and there was this dude who just did 30 years, and they asked him, everyone's like, man, you're still here? Like, and he was like, no, I had went home after 30 years. He's like, man, I was doing good. I got my own apartment. And the landlord came to me one day and told me that he was selling the place, and he only had 2 weeks before he had to leave. So he calls his parole officer and said, hey man, like, can I go back to the halfway house or something? Like, can you help me find a place to live? He's like, well, that's not my problem. If you don't find a place to live and you don't have a home site while you're on parole, I'm gonna have to violate you. Sure as shit, he's back on that bus. He had nobody. He did 30 years. He did 30 years. Most of his family was dead.
That's right. That's true. That's very true. That happens all the time. If you come home on parole or something like that, and you don't have no job, you don't have nowhere to go, no shelter, they'll send you right back. And you don't have commit no crime, they'll send you right back. That's true.
That's so fucked up. And it's, again, it comes back to that financial incentive to put people back into the system and manufacturing artificial criminality there, when the fact of the matter is there should be incentive for their parole officer to help them find new housing to keep them outside in a normal life where they can actually work and function in life, not them being incentivized to funnel people back into the fucking prison. That dude already did his time. It's so fucked, because like, if you don't have any family to be able to go to, like, hey, I'm losing my apartment because of the fucking landlord's bullshit, selling the house. I need somewhere else that I can be paroled to. Can I fucking set this stuff up where I can, you know, stay with you for the rest of my parole, or at least till I can find another apartment, something. If you don't have a safety net like that anymore, because your family's all passed away in the 30 fucking years you were locked up in the first place, that does not make you further criminal, you know, to deserve getting thrown the fuck back in the prison system and tortured some more.
I know those
And the
guys.
funny thing is, go ahead,
But-
go ahead.
I gotta say this. This is what they'll tell you about the parole situation. Parole is a privilege, not a right. They'll also say, you don't have to do anything. They could actually come take you off the streets, and no one could do nothing about it. When you start reading the fine print on like the laws and statutes, I know in Illinois, you're still a ward of the state, meaning like they own you still by law, by this law of the land. They could literally just come and take you and put you right back in, and they do it all the time.
I'm curious, do you know, does that still apply even if you like maxed out your time on your sentence?
Let me say
and you know
something.
what's funny about that? I was sentenced to 10 years, and by the time I did my parole time, I had done 11 years. So yeah.
Let me say something in reference to that. Once you got a felony, you are convicted for life.
Yep.
You know, I was in Canada, living in Canada, visiting some family members. And I left Canada with my wife. We went back to the city, New York, to the city to hang out. And then we came back that night. And I happened to ask one of the boarders. I said, listen, how could you have, you know, how could I become a citizen of Canada? He said, have you ever committed a crime? At that point, I didn't know what to say, but I couldn't lie, you know? So I said, yeah, I committed a crime. He said, pooh, then hurry up and put the handcuffs on me to transfer me over to the United States because I was in the border of Canada. And I said, oh, wait a minute, what's up here, man? You know, this happened almost like 60 fucking years ago. What are you talking about, man? You know, I'm not no criminal. You know, he said, yeah, well, you've been in jail. I said, have you got anybody in Canada who's been in jail? And there ain't no criminals in Canada? What the fuck is wrong with you? I was telling her that, and she said, stop talking. I said, man, you getting me pissed off now, man, because I came home, you know, I went back to college and got my bachelor's degree, you know, worked in the court system for almost 25 fucking years, you know, working with ex-convicts, you know, and then I worked with people who had HIV, and I worked with people who had alcohol and drug problems, and you gonna tell me I'm a fucking criminal? Fucking, what the fuck is wrong with you? And my wife was telling me, stop talking like that. I said, no, she gave me fucking wrong. She got me confused with somebody in her fucking life. You know, that's what I said. She got me confused with somebody in her fucking life. It seems like nobody in Canada is criminal, has committed a crime. So nevertheless, as of now, and that's been like 2 years, I've been told I cannot return to Canada.
That's so fucked up, especially considering the fact that not only did you do all of your time, but
see, the only thing is that I never did the paperwork, you know, and even the paperwork itself, that doesn't mean anything. You know, you do paperwork and it clears you of your felony, but that doesn't mean anything, man, because once you are a felon, you are a felon for life.
Okay, but the fact of the matter is that even after doing all of that, after going through and getting your degrees so that you could do that social work with other prisoners coming out, when even with your prior conviction, you still passed the background check to literally become a government employee to be able to help other inmates coming out. I don't see how Canada can be like, oh, but we're not even going to fucking look into this and see how your life has
I hear you.
changed since then. It's fucked. I see Dr. Rob has joined us. Hello, welcome. To briefly catch you up to speed, the case studies that were presented in this section of the book by Fanon today were on being tortured while under arrest or imprisoned. And so that's where the conversation has gone from there of, a lot of folks here can relate.
Ironically enough, earlier today, I evaded arrest myself, and then I got back in time though to be able to pick up my kids from school and help them with their homework for a minute and stuff. But yeah, there's a big protest and anti-protest rally of the anti-LGBT crowd, the Christo-fascists, and during the standoff, the cops just they rushed our side, of course, and they always have their back to the fasc and their face to us, which to make it obvious whose side they're on. And there's a older gal who's the leader of the Revcoms here in LA, and they targeted her, and she's like, she's not like some young athletic girl. She's an older lady, and they yanked her out of the crowd, and they were like pushing her against the pavement. They were pushing her against the pavement. And then I like ran over there, and I was like, what are you doing, man? You guys need to lay off of her. And they're like, arrest him too. And then they grabbed me, and I was able to squirm away, but just like some scrapes on my elbow and knee, ripped my pants. Then once I went and joined the other side, they just kind of like, good riddance. But we held them off though, and they weren't able to breach the Department of Education building, which was their plan. But yeah, I'm sorry I wasn't here for the talk about those case studies, because I'm wanting to get involved in terms of like using my background in mental health and to be able to help people with PTSD. When one of you were mentioning stories about guys first night on the dock, and I've heard a lot of those stories from clients, just like Dante's Inferno, like laying there at nighttime and just hearing people like sobbing and crying and hearing people getting assaulted and raped, and just it's a house of horrors, and it's a miracle that anybody gets through that with shreds of their sanity intact, much less write an amazing book like Blood and yeah, it definitely makes me want to get more involved in supporting our homies behind bars.
Right. It's one of those facets where it's like the way that the current system works and has for a long fucking time does not actually help anybody when it comes to actually addressing the reasons why they landed there in the first fucking place. It's further PTSD because of the fucking torture. Even if, like you said, you're not getting tortured directly, you're still being mentally tortured by having to hear the sounds of other people in the building being fucking tortured and raped, the whole fucking 9 yards. You're still being negatively affected psychologically and gonna come out of these fucked prisons in worse shape than you entered. And it's all fucked. On that note, I see Joe's had his hand up for a moment. What are your thoughts, son? Also, hi, Sally. Welcome.
Oh, well, I'm patient, so
Hey,
let me-
sister comrade. Sorry, Joe. Sorry.
no, why don't you say something first, since you just got on, and then I'll speak after. Go ahead.
Sorry, comrades. I'm just been busy, but I'm here now. I'm so sorry for being distracted. Capitalism, you guys.
Area.
But I'm here now. Okay.
Glad you're here. You might have some good input for this discussion too. The section of Wretched of the Earth that we read today was about being tortured while under arrest or being imprisoned. So if there's anything that you want to share,
Brother George Che, he can speak on that. He's the front man, Attica.
Yeah. Yep. He's been filling us in on a lot of the stuff that he experienced while in Attica. And it's so fucked what people have to endure in this fucking country.
You know what? I have a friend that just got out of prison. He went to prison, right? And he, to this day, he has that stigma. Like his parents, it's horrible. Like I have it. I'm not a criminal, you guys. I have that stigma. It's horrible. It's not like, it's not right. Like you can go to jail if you're innocent, and that's so fucking scary. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
Yep, that's one other facet we were discussing too, is how this system will straight up fucking manufacture criminality just to fucking supplant more bodies to funnel into the fucking prison system for all that federal grant
yes,
funding
ma'am.
and shit.
Yes,
to go
ma'am.
to
Every
these
prisoner,
privately
they
owned
get money for us.
corporations.
Yep.
That's all it fucking comes down to, is how many
When
ways can they
I was in jail for 6 months, I didn't have no health care. I didn't have nothing. It was horrible. So like say, oh, I did like a Google search about women that gave birth in jail and they died. It's actually, it's a thing. Like they don't, if you give birth in prison or jail, they don't take you to the hospital until the baby is literally coming out. Hey, you guys, you know what I mean? It was actually, oh, why, like, it's fucked up. Like, it's not funny. Like, your rights, when you go, you're dehumanized, they strip search you. Like, that shit is fucked up. Fucked up. You know what I mean?
I've literally had sheriffs look me in the eye and be like, what the fuck do your rights mean now? You're under our control. And I was like, oh, really, bitch? I'll let my lawyer
Sister,
know you
they
said that.
rape women in jails, like the COs. Those motherfuckers are not, they're fucking the most crooked ass motherfuckers. Like, oh my God. Jail sucked, but like at least I got to understand how fucking dehumanized, and I was dehumanized, and all this shit that I didn't have. I mean, not have, but like it was a good. Being revolutionary, you take that shit in, right? And you take it and you fight it and you become stronger. But like the non people would crumble. They would break and fall, get out of jail and fuck up and go back to jail again. They become part of that system. Fuck that. I'm hella I'm on my P's and Q's now as far as like the popo and the police, and I make sure where I'm at everything is safe. It's horrible. Like it's horrible, sister. It's not jail. That shit is not cool. Like that shit is fucked up. You know?
It's all torturous. And like Shay was pointing out, of like, once you've got one conviction, you're just considered a fucking criminal for life. And they're like, we will look for any fucking reason at all to snatch your ass up, basically kidnap you and throw you back in the fucking prison system. Even like the example we were discussing a minute ago of somebody having done 30 years, getting out and, getting established, having his own apartment. And because his landlord decided to sell the apartment he was renting, he got his parole violated and sent back to prison because he simply could not find any other housing. They set your ass
up for failure, sister. It's fucked up, man.
To make money.
It really is.
It's
okay.
Brutal,
we've got a few.
Brutal.
They're not trying to
it's extremely brutal. It's perpetual fucking torture that just continues to damage you mentally and in turn physically and for the rest of your fucking life.
Huey was a. Oh my God, Huey went through some shit when he was in jail.
Yeah, extreme torture.
Yes, ma'am. Brother Che, I mean, he's the front man for, I respect him. I respect anybody that went to jail and came out and thrived. And to go in the enemy system and then come back out and be a bad motherfucker, that's dope. Because it's hard. It's really hard. Now that I personally went through it, that shit is fucking, like, my life is a fairy tale, you guys. I've never been through some shit, And then now this is the first time that I was in jail for 6 months. That shit was rough. Not, you know what I'm saying? Like that shit. So I have like hella respect for people that are in the enemy system and they come out of it and then they fucking thrive. because that's the ultimate fuck you to, like, that's, well, you can't tell me nothing, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's the, so I make it a mission to, like, be, like, I can't, fuck that, I ain't gonna fold, you know?
I fucking hear you. It's like mad respect and a fucking buttload of empathy for the shit that everybody has gone through dealing with imprisonment and still being able to come out and that much better afterwards.
That's why the UPM ministry is so vital to our movement, because that's where motherfuckers listen. When you're in jail, you can change the whole pod. My whole pod was communist after I got, because you spend time with these motherfuckers, you know what I'm saying? So then you, fuck it,
I'm glad. I'm proud of you for having that impact while you were in there and educating the folks around you of, like, wait a minute, no, how about we revolutionize our minds here?
No, I swear to God, if I didn't have revolution while I was in there, I would have fucking died. I swear to God, I would have been broken ass human being, but fuck that. Revolution made me stronger. I was like, you know what? I'm not in the hole. I'm not getting my ass beat by prison like Huey. All these revolutionaries that got Brother Che, y'all went through some shit. So this is baby food. Baby food. Baby food. So fuck that. Fuck that. That shit ain't. It was a good.
I feel you. My own experiences with jail are even shorter, you know, so it's like, okay, my ass was still on the bottle for that shit. But even just having experienced shit like a few days at a time in county, holy fuck, you got my respect and my empathy for dealing with what you did for fucking
You fucking
years.
have to cough and show your butthole to some stranger? That shit is not cool.
I got sexually assaulted by a sheriff because when they made me do that shit, my commentary on it was asking the bitch, do you enjoy your job? She's telling me to squat and spread them and fucking cough. And I'm like, do you enjoy this? The bitch slapped me across the face with my own fucking underwear because I asked her if she's fucking enjoying her job.
Oh, bitch ass move.
Yeah. They're fucked up. They're all fucked up. It's
honestly though, before this, like, I got into the movement maybe 4 years ago, and then the last 2 years I had to go through the justice system, court system, and then I ended up in jail for 6 months for trying to get me and my daughter to a safer spot. So that's I'm not a bad person. Like, for me to go to jail, you guys, I'm not made for the streets. Okay, trust me, I'm soft, right? So for me to go through all this shit, but I think it was necessary almost to feel that human, where when you feel like degraded, that fucked up feeling is necessary to actually to explain, like, you're more fuck that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, to actually go through it and to speak about it is two different things. Trust me. But county jail sucks too. It was county, not prison. County jail. Fucking, I'm not made for the streets, you guys. I can't do this. It was hard for me, you know what I mean? But the revolution got me through. So imagine just the normal person. They're fucked. Like, literally, they're fucked.
What happened with you is another example of that manufactured criminality of trying to punish you for trying to provide a better life for your daughter. That's all.
I know. It's trust me, the can of worms is open now. Fuck that. Right. I'm taking everybody down now. Like, this shit is it's more real. Before it was all theory, but like the theory and the practice actually happened to me now. I went through it. That shit's more real now, you know? It hits like a motherfucker. So, like,
your description, Sally, it makes me think of Kwame's story. He talked about this book called Men's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, and it's a book written by a Jewish writer in Nazi concentration camps about what helped people survive. And having a sense of purpose and meaning and connectedness to something outside of themselves is what helped people keep going. Like, he just kind of did a study on what people just kind of died, you know, just lost their life will to live and what people made it. And what you're describing about coming out the other side stronger, that's a lot like Kwame Nkrumah's story in his My Search for Truth, Answers, and Meaning.
Yes.
That's a beautiful example of how crushing adversity can make a person more powerful when they come out the other side of it with that sort of revolutionary spirit.
Absolutely.
Also, it brings focus to like, you can go to jail if you're innocent. Like, I don't do nothing, guys. Yeah, I don't do nothing wrong. I fucking follow the chat. I'm not like that. You know, revolutionaries, we tend to be a little bit hardcore protest. In real life, I'm a softie. Like, I can't, you know what I'm saying? So for jail was fucked up for me. Fucked up. I didn't see my daughter for 6 months. I was breastfeeding my daughter for 2 years, and then I had to give my daughter away and then go to jail. Like, that's fucked up. You know what I'm saying? And I was a good mom, good person, good comrade. Fuck that. So that's why, like, my revolutionary, they just feel the fire. These motherfuckers, these enemy systems thought they could break me down. They just feel my fire extra more. So joke's on you. You know what I'm saying? That's why I have hella respect for union. There's a lot of men that go into prison and they come out felons, and then they have nothing to do but trades. And then they get their trades, and then union. That's where I'm at in my life, is unionizing, because that's us.
Yep.
That's us, you know?
It's one of the ways which is actually allowed under this current system, where we can pursue avenues in a quote unquote above board manner to actually seize the means of production. And that's actually what the initial purpose of the unions was for. Not to go, hey, master, can I please have a few more pennies on my fucking paycheck? No, the purpose was to seize the fucking means and actually take ownership. And so when it comes to unionizing, I always encourage people to keep pushing for more and more actual shareholdings being part of your contract, because the more that the workers actually hold ownership, the better. On that note, we do have a lineup of hands up. Joe, you would put your hand up first, and then Rob, and then Shay. So if you guys want to roll with it, I would love to hear some thoughts too.
Oh, I wanted to touch up on a couple of things. We got to remember that the police have a quota to make on a monthly status. The prisons have a quota to make and filling beds. The counties have a quota to meet and getting guilty pleas, whether it be through plea bargaining or whatever, because right away they give you scare tactics. And then they said, well, sign this piece of paper, you can go home today. You signed yourself away to pleading to something that you never did to do in the beginning. So that was one thing.
Yes, sir.
And then the school to prison pipelines, which I'm really a strong advocate about. They target our youth in our poor societies, in our poor communities, that know that their families cannot afford lawyers to get them out of jail or stand up for them. And then it keeps on going and going. And then they turn adults, and then it carries with them 10, 20, 30, 40 years, like we were mentioned today in our conversations. But what are we willing to do about that? Like, Comrade Robert Strong, if you're still on, we're having an event on this coming Saturday in East Los Angeles at Ruben Salazar Park.
I'll be there.
Oh, I don't know if you have time to go in the morning to Belvedere Park, because some of us Brown Beret comrades are going to be meeting there in the prior to going to Ruben Salazar Park. It starts at 4, but they want us there at 3.
I want to meet you guys there. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be good, because especially in the one at Salazar Park, because one of the things we work towards is police brutality, and the way they keep on targeting us, low income, or some we may call them people of different colors. They keep on targeting us, and they make it a business. And like I was saying, it goes down to the simple. Even the police gangs that have quotas to make, or even the city motorcycle cop that has to give 20 tickets on the first of the month. You don't see the son of a bitch for the rest of the month, but the first 2 days of work, he gave 20, 50, 100 tickets, and now he gets to kick back the rest of the month. And then,
Yep.
and then not just the police, not just the Department of Justice, but it all trickles down to the public defenders. It trickles down to transportation of the police, where they transport us to court and this and that. I think they're charging like $350 right now to take you from jail to court, which the masses of the peoples have to pay in taxes for that. It's all like a scam. And then even like the sister was saying, having to go to jail and stuff like that. Even when you go to jail, you could buy a soup on the at the 99-cent store for like 10 for $1. But no, not in jail. You're gonna have to pay $1 or $2 for that same soup that costs 8 cents or 10 cents on the streets. And then you can't even call your family unless you go to those specific things where you have to put money on their books to even call you. With Telecrest, I think it's called,
Yes.
which is another freaking scam.
Yes.
And it keeps on going on and on and on. And Lord forbid you need medication in there, because somebody's going to have to pay for that, because they're not going to give it to you voluntarily. We were talking about earlier how the pharmaceutical business has a lot to do with breaking down to why are people in trouble, or why are people dealing with stuff. A lot of times it's because of chemical imbalances, and a lot of times they misconcepted. You might even be having a chemical imbalance, but you might be having just a hard time in life, and they want to subjugate you and deem you fit to qualify for this certain special pill to make everything okay, and everything's going to be okay, when it's just the corporate businesses, pharmaceutical corporate businesses, just targeting the peoples. They do it through commercials, mass commercials nowadays. Like, oh, you're sneezing, we got a pill for you. You fart too much, we got a pill for you. Whatever the case may be. And then they keep on putting it out there and broadcasting it out there.
All right, Max,
Instead
that's
of
buddy.
making people,
Come on, son.
instead of thinking people, we can make ourselves sick, or we can make ourselves well, just in our thought process. But when we get that mass influx of this bullshit thing, like, I think you're sick, I think you need a special pill for this. And then before you know it, like, well, now you are farting too much, or now you are burping too much, or whatever the case may be. I'm making kind of like just a simple frame of that. But when it comes down, is corporate businesses subjugating their mass making ways of making money off of us by any means necessary, whether it's through the judiciary system, whether it's through the medical system, or whether it's through the CPS, or any other thing that brings our families and communities down. It's all about that almighty dollar, they call it. And that almighty dollar leads them into a world of confusion that confuses the masses. And that's where, as revolutionaries, we need to stand up and not tolerate that. Keep on bringing it into highlight. Keep on bringing it into conversation, and only then maybe we can make a change. Even if it's not in our lifetime, may it be in the next 7 generations. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Conrad. All power. Okay, Rob had his hand up next, and then Shay.
I'm gonna try to get my thoughts out there. I got a baby in my hand, so so bear with me. Yeah, I wanted to highlight a few things too, but something I think about with looking back on everything that we're talking about too is like it really highlights how our material conditions can push people towards fight or flight, right? And when you're stuck in a cell and trying to figure out how you can fight or flight, right? Like where you're gonna go, you can't go nowhere. But sometimes in your mind, you have to take yourself somewhere else. Right? So that's an aspect of it there. And there's what like something that I've seen from my experience, right? A lot of people, their fight while they're in there could be seen in different forms, right? Either you can see somebody that's completely just rebelling against the system where they're trying to tear that place up. You got people that are in there that find like books about culture or religion or something, you know, something where they could contend with what their material conditions are at the time, right? Like how Marx says, religion being the opiate of the masses, right? Like this is where you see that in prison, but then you also see the actual opiates in prison, right? We're dealing with our our material conditions where we're drugging ourselves up. Like I know myself personally, while I was in there, I found like different ways through either the law. Like I don't know if you don't know what a grievance is. A grievance is something you write up on like the COs, and you're always like trying to get them in trouble. So like I probably wrote a million of those. But then like even through like culture, right? Like I was like anti what the establishment tried to teach us because like what they do is every single cell you go in, you'll find a Bible. You'll find a Bible, you have that, you can find them anywhere you went, or you could get access to like drugs that'll keep you calm or stuff like that. Like that's like you could get that anytime. So like looking at this, right? Like you kind of see like the situation under capitalism like put in a box, right? They just want you to be there. They want you to be institutionalized, and they want you just to be obedient and work for them, make some money for them. Yeah, I did the industries for years. So I know what it's like to work under those messed up conditions. But like and I look back, and if that experience like expedited me towards I think what landed me to be a revolutionary. I wasn't a revolutionary per se while I was in there, but those things brought me to that. So it's like when you see that, you see the people in there, they're dying to fight back, literally dying to fight back, and just don't know how because they don't have access to those books. You know, they don't have access to the materials to figure out why their conditions is. A lot of people, what you see that are in prison, they'll come out and they'll spew like conservative talking points a lot of the times because that's what they have access to. You know, like everything is about I don't even want to say because I know this is recorded, but like conspiracies from the little mustache man type stuff you would hear in there a lot. You know what I mean? Like anti-Jewish rhetoric. You'll see like things like that in there, and people just don't know where to direct their the reasons why they're in the situation in the first place. And that's why I think about George Jackson's situation, right? When he was put in a cell for 7 years in solitary confinement, and all he had was Lenin, Stalin, Mao, all these books. He said that these became like his friends basically while he was in the cell, and this was his way of fighting back. But like when you see afterwards, if you ever watch the interviews with the warden, and they were being criticized and critiqued for allowing them to have those things because they don't want you to fight back. They want you to be obedient. They want you to be drugged up. They want you to go to their church services, and the chaplain is going to tell you what it's supposed to be like. You know what I mean? And so like, but when you get out, then what? If you get out, then what? Like that what's the next step for somebody who's been pushed to like and tortured into that? And there's a real quick example. I'm gonna give you two examples real quick of like how I seen torture in there. I'm gonna give one about my own experience and one, well, it's also my experience, but then seeing others go through. So the Cook County Jail, Chicago, right? If you violate your parole, you don't go back to Cook County. You go to Stateville. So when they send you in Stateville, they set you in Stateville receiving, and it's like segregation. And this is literally, when I tell you, a warehouse of people, like cells stacked on cells, no windows, nothing. And you sit in there, and when I'm talking about the food, you know what a Lunchable is, right?
Yeah.
The lunch, that's your breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, and if you have to sit, and then you go to court every 2-3 months, you're still sitting there. You might be innocent, but if to get out of that situation, and you have a new case pending or something like that, you're gonna plead guilty. You're gonna plead guilty because you're gonna go to a prison now to get you out of that cell, and that they may, where you going may have a yard you could go work out on. You may have you may have friends there that have commissary. You can give visits and stuff like that, where you're stuck in this situation and you're literally being tortured. I'm gonna tell you, my cellie while I was in there was there 9 months. And he was arrested for being around somebody who had a gun while he was on parole, so they charged him with it too. He showed me his picture ID when he came in. He was 310 pounds. He was 190 pounds when I seen him. 190 pounds. That's inhumane. How quick he lost that by being in that place. And like some of the stuff where I chose to fight back while I was in there is because they shut off our water for like 3 weeks. They would come around with a Gatorade thing and pass out cups. We weren't allowed to flush our toilets, nothing, for 3 weeks. So what happens when you get pushed in this situation for a period of time? What do you like? How do you deal with that? Like, what do? You sit in a cell with feces of another person, you just sit and you deal with that, or you fight back? And over enough of that, we started to come together. I didn't matter what race, what gang you were in, nothing. We all came together, and this is what we were doing. We did a hunger strike. They're like, all right, well, we don't like that. Gets attention, right? That gets attention. That starts getting like, what's going on? Because they got to feed you that crap. They want to put it somewhere, right? Then there's the other aspect. Oh well, when we go to the chow hall, now we're going with bags of that feces, and that's just going flying over the fence like missiles, landing in the parking lot where their cars are. And that started affecting them. Like, this is like stuff where you get pushed, where you don't know what else to do. What else do you do in that situation? You know what I'm saying? And this is where, like, I know we're not necessarily, some people don't think that we're necessarily in that point. And because there's a lot of privileged people across the US that don't really see that stuff. But what does it take to get people to push to the limits to actually fight back? Because a lot of people end up just conforming to it. Like, capitalism, the pharmaceutical companies you talk about will just drug the hell out of the people, and they just go medicate. Where do you see in Chicago, damn near on every corner, it's a church and a liquor store, and we know drugs are everywhere. So we just think about, it's the same concept. And it's the psychological warfare that continuously goes on, and that way, when it comes to fight or flight, you figure it out. Like, you just imagine if you were in a situation with someone that's trying to fight you, and you just drug them up instead. It might give you a chance to do whatever bogus shit you were doing a little bit longer. It buys you more time, and that's what we're seeing. It's buying them more time, and we keep perpetuating it, And it's, I don't know. I just went on a rant, and now the baby is tearing shit up on the floor. All power to the people.
All power, comrade. Thank you for your input there. Comrade Shay, go ahead.
I've been a revolutionary for the last 62 years. And each time that I fought the system in prison, I would be thrown in segregation. I would be beaten up. I got beat up once so bad that I was almost at the point of dying. And they threw water at me with a hose. And I got sick, stupid sick. And what they do, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but they send a priest to see me. And I looked at this priest, I said, you know who you're talking to? And the priest said, yeah, I know who I'm talking to. I said, well, get the hell out of my face then. I don't need you, you know? And I was lucky that I got better, but I was always continuously being torn from one prison to another. I traveled all 5 prisons, all New York State prisons. I've been in all of them, and all of them know me. They don't know me by being a good boy either. I just didn't take no shit from them. Every time they said something to me that it was wrong, I would tell them. And they would throw me in segregation. You know, so speaking of Sally, she went to prison to become a revolutionary. And that's good. George Jackson wasn't a revolutionary when he went to jail either. But when he went to jail for a minor, stealing $65 from the garage, a gas station, and the thing is, he was promised and never complete, and was never given a minor offense, and he wound up doing life. They gave him life. So, you know, when we talking about the system, we talk about a monster, a person that is very evil, man. Have you ever seen a horror movie? If you ever seen a horror movie, that is capitalism at its fullest. The most horrible movie that you could watch on TV is capitalism, because the capitalists would not give a fuck about you. You know, we've been here all day talking about pills and talking about torture. I was tortured on numerous occasions, you know, and they try to kill me. In Attica, what happened in Attica? After they kicked me in my chin, they kicked me in my head, they kicked me in my face. You know, they put me up against the wall, they put an X on my back. And then the state troopers, they were gonna shoot me. And the only person that saved my life was a senator, Senator Dunn. He came out in the catwalk and he looked, he said, I don't want to see that. So they stopped from shooting us. It was about 5 of us on a wall with an X on our backs. Then we had to run to a gauntlet, you know, and I was like this. I was running, I was falling because they was hitting me with clubs, with guns, with rifles that were hitting me, all kinds of stuff. We talk about torture. That's torture. You know, as a matter of fact, I'm 76 years old today, and I've suffered from back pains. I've suffered from all kinds of aches. Why? Because of Attica. If I would have been tortured the way I was tortured in Attica back then, I probably today would be in much better health. And then after I ran a gun, they threw me in a cell. And what did they do? They played Russian roulette with me all night. Russian roulette. One would come and cock his gun. He said, beep, oh, and nothing came out. I'll be back. But I had to have my chin on the bars. Ain't that a kick in the ass? A chin on the bar all night with somebody clicking their guns at me. They were trying to kill me.
And
you know,
psychologically
so
torturing you in the process.
Your name is Che, huh? Your name is Che. We're gonna know. I said, yeah, that's right. My name is Che, and I'm gonna die as Che. And I still say today, if anything ever happens to me, if the system ever wants to kill me, they'll kill me as Che, because I will never change my name. I will always be a revolutionary until I die. That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Comrade Shay. What a mind fuck to have gone through all of that, and you know, being tortured, being threatened with death. Every one of these things is like violations of human rights that you know global organizations have deemed this is illegal for anybody to fucking do.
That's right.
And How the fuck is the United States still getting away with this shit? You know, like people talk about Guantanamo and like, oh, they're still waterboarding over there and they're not even fucking doing nothing about that. But most people don't even realize that these forms of torture are happening at every fucking prison that is in the United States, not just the foreign colonized fucking prisons that we have in other countries like Guantanamo. You know, it happens here
Yeah,
every
yeah.
fucking day.
Every day. Every day.
Unacceptable. One more reason why this entire fucking system needs dismantled. It's so fucking corrupt in every way, shape, and form. The fact that these motherfuckers have the audacity and feel the entitlement to be abusing and torturing and traumatizing people left and right because you're imprisoned, it's fucked. It's fucked. Our prison system doesn't serve any form of rehabilitation. It serves to further fucking destroy people.
Yeah, that's true. Teach on. That's true.
Colonizer shit. No fucking better than what Fanon was describing in this chapter of what the French were doing there. This is a commonality that we see in every area that's been colonized, of the colonizers doing this type of shit to completely fucking break the masses. It's sociopathic, seeking fucking, you know, control via narcissistic and sociopathic abuses. Like,
I was
Go
going to
ahead,
say,
John.
it's 2023. What are we as revolutionary soldiers, brothers and sisters, willing to do about to make radical change? And I really appreciate meetings and stuff like that, but we have to take that collectively into making action. Of course, I'm always getting inspired, tuning in and listening and gaining knowledge. But how are we going to utilize that knowledge into making positive change? And this is where we have to face ourselves in the question. And every meeting or anything I study on is how are we going to benefit that? How are we going to translate that into what we can do that effectively today as revolutionary soldiers and soldierettes? That's all I wanted to say.
I mean, I do have a few ideas. I just don't know how comfortable I can be in saying them on a public forum that's going to be on YouTube. Because, you know, forewarned is forearmed. So, you know, if we're going to address this issue specifically, we should probably do so off the air. Just saying.
I agree. And I have a meeting, I have our La Mesa Nacional meeting, a study group going on in 13 minutes. So I can't really talk too much more, but it's always a pleasure to gain knowledge from you comrades, because we always have so much to say. And I guess one of my closing notes is all power to the people, and let us continue to stay strong, because tomorrow faces its own struggles and adversaries. Damn, it's like a continuous struggle. But let's all stay strong and keep ourselves balanced. That's all.
All power, comrade. Thank you. And yeah, no worries. I just looked at the clock and we are at about 2 hours and 45 minutes for this recording. So, you know, would be good to wrap things up soon here. But yeah, Joe, if you'd like to discuss some of those things further, maybe Comrade Rob Rich and I can rendezvous with you later on a call to discuss some manners to address the prison system. He heads up the UPM prison ministry, and be a perfect person to consult on that one. Does anybody else have any thoughts? Awesome. Thank you, Joe. If anybody else has any thoughts you'd like to contribute in closing here, by all means, take the floor, and then we can wrap things up. Going once? Going twice? Huh? Okay. All right. Well, this has been another awesome discussion. I love these conversations that we have. I love learning from revolutionaries like Fanon and from all of you. You know, this is one of those things that definitely sharpens our praxis and gets us thinking, you know, like Joe asking, like, what can we do to actually address these problems, you know? And that's incredibly important because it's kind of futile to present a problem without presenting a solution to it. And this is one of those facets that we definitely need multiple solutions for, because it's intolerable to continue to allow it to continue as it is, with people being straight up fucking tortured, whether it be at their local fucking pig shop when they're getting arrested, or in the county jails, or in the prisons. It's all completely fucking unacceptable. And it does not have any end in sight as far as the system is concerned. And it does not resolve anything. It does not help rehabilitate anyone. It does not help them in healing the issues they were dealing with that caused whatever issues that they got arrested for. We need to do complete fucking overhaul societally, and especially concerning our legal system. That said, I love you guys. All power.
Power to the people.
Thank you all for being here today.
All power to the people. Stay strong, comrades.
All power.
All
All
power.
And hopefully we'll see you all on Friday. We'll be reading the next chapter of The Young Lords.
I'll be
Friday
here.
evening.
I'll be here.
Awesome. Fuck yeah. All right. See y'all then. Hasta mañana. Well, not mañana. Few days.